Nothing justifies genocide.
What you call genocide, I call a day's work.
What's up, Lore Masters? Today we'll be analyzing the DS9 episode Duet and the connotations that come with it. Interestingly, we're in Season 1, which, despite all its flaws, did explore the Bajorans' issues when dealing with going from an oppressed people to a freed civilization and not knowing what to do with that freedom. In this episode, we'll see that through Kira Nerys, a person who, at this moment, is very much still in the terrorist mentality, and that Bajorans can do no wrong while Cardassians can do no right. To that end, when she hears that there is a person who has suffered from Kalanora, a disease that can only be gotten from a previous forced labor camp accident, she automatically assumes that it is a Bajoran survivor. That's not necessarily unreasonable, though her response when she realizes that it's not a Bajoran somewhat is. Let's discuss it. After hearing that there was a survivor being treated for Kalanora, Kira quickly goes down to the infirmary to be confronted with a Cardassian.
Kira to Odo.
Go ahead.
I'm in the infirmary. I need security here on the double.
The former terrorist is incensed, and she orders that security come to assist her immediately and states that the man is a criminal. The Cardassian attempts to jog, I guess, away. He is, however, stopped by Odo on his way out. We get some dialogue here that I think is really curious.
I haven't done anything.
Then why did you run?
First, Odo asks the man that if he's innocent, why would he run? That's not how this works. Just because you are running away doesn't actually make you guilty. Additionally, and here's a hot take, just because you were at an internment camp or forced labor camp and happen to be the ethnicity of the people who were the oppressors, doesn't mean you're automatically a war criminal. Both Odo and Kira are severely out of line in this action. The man hasn't been charged with any specific crime, and they have no idea if he is or isn't guilty. We know this because they have no idea who he is. Now, I'll grant there is a counter here, but let's discuss that a bit later. At this point, his actions are suspicious, I'll grant, but on a station that is administered by the Federation, that's not a crime. Suspicious people aren't thrown in jail for just being that. It really is an intrigue to see how Kira and Odo grow over the series, to see where they end up, especially looking at Season 1. Moving forward, the decision to keep him causes all kinds of issues for Sisko, who finds himself between a rock and a hard place. They technically have a man in jail for no discernible reason, which already is something that will raise hell with Starfleet. On top of that, Bajor is demanding he be kept and stand trial, while Cardassia is demanding the man be released. Initially, the prisoner, who claims to be Maritza, states that he never was at the internment camp. However, that's simply not true. The disease he has can only be contracted from the incident that happened there. Again, though, this raises some red flags, but the man hasn't been proven to be guilty of doing anything. Though, I want to discuss a small counter to my argument here. It's brought up only briefly, but it's something that I think warrants a huge conversation. Unfortunately, it's never discussed or examined in the show, and I think this was a big miss on the part of the writers.
Cardassians destroyed almost all records of the occupation.
Towards the end, we hear that Cardassians were meticulous at scrubbing any record of them being at that labor camp. Well, really, the occupation overall. They tried to destroy as many documents as they could. They made it extremely difficult to determine if someone was at the camp or if they weren't. So if the Cardassians were trying to cover their tracks so well, and it made it hard to determine if someone was actually there, can having the disease make that person guilty? Even if no other evidence is provided. The argument does have some legitimacy, I think, because it definitely places them there, but again, you don't know what they did. And if it does make them guilty, what exact punishment do you give to this rando person? I honestly am not sure I know the answer here. Regardless, it's not discussed all that much, and tensions continue to heighten on both sides. It gets worse when the man who claimed to be Maritza looks exactly like Goldar Hill, the architect of the labor camp and butcher of Bajorans. Once this information is brought to him, he instantly embraces it and discusses how joyous he was that he killed so many people. Of course, Starfleet, the Federation, and Cardassian leaders are confused by all this. Gul Dukat sends documents showing that not only was Goldar Hill not there, but he died and was given a public funeral. All of Cardassia saw his body and was in mourning. Kira states that this could be made up, and both Odo and Sisko agree that it's possible that it's some kind of deceit, but Well, if it was as grand as Ducat says, then shouldn't that be pretty easy to confirm? It would have arguably been on news networks, and if this man was the butcher he claimed to be, I would be extremely surprised if Bajor had not been sensitive to that fact, especially if he was given honors, and that people weren't talking about it when it happened. Even if we assumed that all information on Cardassia was not for galactic consumption, that transmissions to and from the planet was strictly prohibited. You're telling me Starfleet intelligence couldn't confirm this one way or the other? Really? 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 At the end of the day, so much information comes out and so many things don't make sense, including that this man apparently has had the 24th century equivalent of a plastic surgery done to him, that Kira determines that he isn't Gul Darhil. And ultimately, she's able to get him to admit it, that he was just a broken man, a sick individual who wanted to take all of the crimes of Cardassia and put them on his shoulders. And ultimately, all of this comes down to one thing. They wanted to kill him for simply being a Cardassian. Oh sure, they had excuses. He had Kalanora, he was at the internment camp, but they wanted to hurt the people who had hurt them. One of the most wonderful things about Deep Space Nine is its character arcs, taking people on one side and going through a journey to bring them to the other. I sincerely believe that Deep Space Nine does this the very best. We see, in this episode, Kira goes from being a woman who blames all Cardassian people to understanding that there is nuance. Now, this lesson won't always stick with her, but it's something that she continues to learn and grow from. And we even see, although she's learned this lesson, that some haven't and never will. But all of this is my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below.